Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of From Idea to Launch. So last time we went through and we're building this application called Wachstum.space, which is just for gathering information or feedback from people based on events that you've had. Now I'm not going to give you a walk through the application again. You can go and watch the first video and possibly the beginning of the second video, just to let you know. But what I am going to do is walk through what we did last time. So what we did last time was went through and created some pages with NextJS, which is as simple as going and creating a pages directory and creating some files inside. So the index file is our home, but other than that, login would be the route. So /login is going to bring to this page, index or the home would bring to this page, and underscore app.js went through is the page we use to render all other pages through. So we attached some global styles to it, as well as added a bunch of meta tags in the title inside of head. We also showed you how you could navigate using basic anchor tags, as well as a link component from NextLink. In this video, we're actually going to look at configuring our login screen. So let me just go ahead and get started here with starting up the server so we can take a look. Yarn dev. I'm just going to run our next dev and start up the dev server. And hopefully I have a window open here that I can use. Let me just open one up. There we go. And we'll go localhost 3000, bring up this, so we're going to go to our login page. Good, so there's our login page. What we're going to do is we're going to configure the form here so that it looks something like Wachstum.space, and we'll go to the login, something like this. Okay, we have the colors down, so that's good. So the few things I want to go through. One is that we want to figure out how we're going to use components, because this is React. And it's not any different, I guess, with Next.js. You can still use components, and it's actually quite nice to share components, because you just have a components directory like anything else, and I'm keeping components inside of it. So let's go ahead and create a button in here. Button.js. I like to keep all my file names capital here, just because when I import them, let's say I'm doing import button from, because you have to keep a capital on that. It's class. Import button from, or I should say it's a class, from a component. It's a component. So import button from, and then usually it would be something like, /components, /button. And that way what I can do here is select both of them if I need to change them to like, okay, I want to have an icon. No, I want to have a div. That seems silly, but either way, it just makes importing nice and easy. Oops, how did I do that? I just shrunk the text size. There we go, that's better. Good, so we're creating components. We need to import React. From here, since importing React from the pages, we don't have to do that. We do from internal components, we'll do that, and then we're going to export our component, default. It's going to be a function. It's going to take in props in here. And we're just going to do, there's going to be no logic in here. And I get pretty lazy nowadays with my button components, so this is not the most ideal way to write components. I have a button like this, and for now we're just going to keep it like that. And because I'm lazy, like I said before, I'm just going to spread in every single prop. That way when you don't have to worry about, oh, I was missing putting in the click function in my component, so I have to go and add it. No, we'll just pass everything through, I don't care. The other thing we're going to add is a style. Because I know you were wondering, how do I immediately style this button? And this is how, style.jsx. Baked in, so we're going to add a class name here to this button, and it's going to be super generic. Whoops. And I think we're going to call it just button, just like this. And I don't want to waste time with the styling, so I'm just going to go ahead and copy and paste the styles I have for the button over here. Boom. And I lied. Let's change it to this, just so I can reuse what I already have. Boom. Okay. Boom. Bunch of stuff in here, slam, bunch of things. What's nice here is, so we're using our CSS variables, so we've already defined the foreground and background components. This is actually going to be primary. There's some changes that we need to make. Otherwise, we're just putting in basic CSS. You can see here that I've done some string interpolation and some lovely null coalescing variables here. So pretty much this is just saying, if I have transparent as a prop, then I can make the border transparent. I don't want any border. Otherwise, I can use the color, or from some CSS variable, and either I can pass in a color, or we can just use the primary color as default. Everything else here is just what it's disabled. It's going to look like, focus, active, and hover. Again, this would be primary. Just basic CSS things, which I'm not going to spend any time on. So let's go into our pages here. I know in index we were rendering some buttons, but we're going to focus on the login today, and we are rendering a button. So let's go ahead and import our component instead. Button from, I always mess that up. And then components / button. It's like the first component I always do is button. I don't know why. I guess you need them to navigate around, but there we go. All right, so we're running our button now. So let's take a look. Login, refresh. There we go. There's our button. Oh, and you notice the edges here are not cornered, but yet I have a border radius, and I don't know if you did notice or not. I have a border radius here. It's because we didn't define this CSS variable. So let's go ahead and do that. Oh, excuse me. Global styles. So in global styles, we'll go ahead and define that. Border radius. I'm not sure what it should be. So let me just go ahead and look what I have defined for that. Aha. Quarter of a rem, 0.25 rems. Now rems are usually it's a base pixel size, and I use rems for everything now. It's relative base pixel size. So usually the base pixel size is something like 16 pixels. So we take obviously one. That's which one I should say that it's equal to 1 rem, and so we're taking a quarter of that. So 0.25 times, oh my goodness, 16, and that's going to give us what our measurement here is in pixels, which I'm pretty sure if I do the math, I don't do the math badly, is 4, but let's just try. 4 times 4, 16, right? So that means then 16 divided by, we should say multiply by 0.25, is 4. So perfect. So it's going to be 4 pixels is our border radius just here. I'll keep that up there, comment, just so you remember that 16 pixels is 1 rem, because we're going to use rems a lot. So that way, we go back over here, let's refresh. Aha, we need to refresh, auto-refreshed, and you can see there we have that lovely, nice borders, and some hover states and that sort of thing, which is nice. Good, so that's just really basic. I'm going to throw in a bunch of components right now, just so we don't have to watch how we create them. Just a couple things. I'll speed this part up so you don't have to watch it. Okay, there we go. Everything's sort of filled out. I haven't put in the fonts yet either, so let me just go ahead and throw some of those in there. In my global style sheets. If you're curious, maybe I should show you this. If you're curious, so I usually tend to use Google Fonts. Let's go ahead and go find a font. I'm not a big fan. I go ahead and say I want usually sans serif and possibly display, but none of the rest. So I'm just going to scroll down randomly and say we're just going to pick one. Oh, that's a bit too much for me. Try again. Scroll down. Ugh. There's one that's not so bad. Gothic. Blah, blah, blah. I couldn't quite figure out how to use this new version. Oh, here, let's find something that has more than one style. Roboto Condensed should. So it's got a bunch of styles. I tend to pick like a regular style and then a bold. I like. There's a new version of fonts, which I'm not a huge fan of. So what I usually do is if you include this massive link, you're loading a bunch of things you may possibly not need. And so when I go in here, I go find this href for the link, grab that reference, copy it, and go to that in the URL. And you get the actual raw CSS that's loaded when you request that URL. So we can just cut out the middleman in a sense, and I'm going to find only the fonts that I imagine that I need, which is going to be the Latin font. Sometimes Latin extended if it has it. I see above as Latin extended, but I'm just going to pick Latin font. That's probably fine for now. And I'll copy and paste this, whoops, and not search it up in the dictionary, and put it over here. That's not what I want. I didn't copy it. Here and there, boom. And now we can use Roboto Condensed, the 400 font weight. And if we want to get the other ones down here somewhere, there's the 700. And then where's the Latin? Over here at the bottom. So Latin 700 as well. You can just toss that in. Boom, and then we can use this font family. I'm super lazy, so I'm going to go back over here and say, show me how to use this font family, and I can just define that in our body. All of the fonts are Roboto Condensed, and then they should clean up some of this a bit. There we go. We get some Roboto Condensed. So just a way for me, anyways, I like to see fonts nicer. I don't want to sit without fonts, and I can use Google Fonts, but because what's going to happen is if you want to request these fonts, it's going to request this URL first, and then it's going to load in those CSS rules, and then it's going to request these URLs, because there's URLs to actually load the font file, the fonts. So we won't go directly there, we just want to get those fonts directly. Now, of course, if these change, now we're stuck, right? We've got these actual static versions as opposed to this dynamic version that is hosted on Google's site. But for me, it's like, I don't really care so much. Until the font stops working, in the case, it's a tiny bit of work to go and find the new URL for those sort of things. But I've never had that problem yet. So maybe my sites haven't been around long enough. Anyways, perfect. So this is what it looks like. The password, now it does nothing, obviously, blah, blah, blah. Oh, this is the actual one. This is what we want. This is what we want to happen. Like, should do nothing. This is what it looks like. Here we go. That's it. That's Roboto. There we go. Yeah, so this does nothing. I can type in a bunch of stuff and it just doesn't do anything. So we have to add it in, so I would like this to be verifying as we go. Boom, 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 boom. As well as disabling some buttons and throwing some errors and then actually allowing people to sign up. So let's go ahead and get into at least doing the front end part of this now before we get into how we actually do logging in and signing up, because I think doing auth like that will be a whole other video. So let's get it so that we can't click on these things until these things are set up. And you can see over here, name, there's no name over here, but that's because the sign up form actually requires a name. But if you toggle out into the login form, just a toggle, which super annoyingly pops up as if it's a submission every time, which I got to figure out how to stop that. So it pops up the name, otherwise it doesn't pop up the name. Stop popping that thing up. 1Password, that's annoying. All right, so let's make it look like that. Back over here, we want to pop in, I added a bunch of components. Again, you can choose the way your components look. There's not any logic in there. I can show you and give you a tour of the ones that I have, but there's nothing going on crazy in there. So the button you've seen, we did that one nice and quick. It's just a button, we spread the props. Similarly, a field component, same thing, just a bit of styling in there. The input especially, same thing, nothing crazy, bit of styling. Label is the only one that has a little bit of logic. So label, I found that I like to do a couple things, having errors in there and also having a help text. So if we have like an error, it's something that's in the top, and you saw it in the demo, I can show you here. The demo here is not valid is the error. So I have it so that when you pass an error text in directly to a label, it displays it for you. Similarly, help, it'll display underneath this over here. And those two are just kind of baked in, so if you have passless props in, you're just going to render a couple of extra components, extra elements in the screen that allow you to see those kind of things. So those are the components we're going to use, and they're already in our login page. So I'm just going to hide this a little bit so I can get a bit more space over here. So I just put true in here because we are going to want to say the name is only visible, and we don't need this implement. The name is only visible if we're signing up. So we have to have some sort of prop for signing up, and it's going to be InState, so we need to toggle back and forth, and I'm going to use useState from React. Again, still don't need to import React because we are in a page, since that's already basically implicitly imported. So I'm going to call it isSignup. So this is the form in sign up mode, and we're going to set isSignup there, useState. We can default to false if you want, that's fine. Undefined is also fine, and then we can toss that in over here into isSignup. Now there's a few other things that are going to change if it's sign up. If it's sign up, we're going to obviously display the email and the password, but we don't want to display login anymore, we want to display sign up. So we'll just toss in some logic in here, and this may not be the best way of doing it, but we'll just say if you are, so is sign up. If you are doing sign up, we want to display the sign up. Otherwise, we are logging in, and we'll display the login. So it says it login. Oops, I keep doing that, that's the original one. So it says login here, and if we go and we'll default this to true, that's not how you spell true. Now it says sign up. And you can see it displays the name, whereas I go back over here and say false, name is gone, login is gone. So what we want to happen is if we click sign up over here, which is our toggle, we want it to not pop up 1Password, but also switch to this as sign in, or sign up rather, and then the name field pops up. So down below, where are we? Here's the sign up button. And this is going to be like a toggle so that if we're in sign up, we want to switch to login. If we're in login, we could switch to sign up. So we'll do the similar thing we have over there, which is that if we have is sign up, So if it is sign up, we want to go back to the login. Otherwise, we do want to sign up. And we can add an on-click function to this here, which is just going to toggle back and forth. So set is sign up to be not, it's the opposite of whatever it currently is, sign up. That is sign up, there we go. And that should flip this back and forth. So I click sign up, it's going to go log in, stop doing that. You see the name showed up, and this became sign up. We click login instead. It's going to make the name disappear, as well as the login and sign up are going to switch. Now this I also want to switch because it says need an account, but if I click sign up and now I want to go log in, it's not going to be need an account, it's going to be have an account. So we can just change that. And this is, again, a bit silly to be doing this sort of logic like this, is sign up question mark, then we want to have an account, otherwise it's need an account. Just something small so that if we come here and it says, need an account, we sign up, and then it says have an account, log in, right? Just some nice logic to allow us to read that a bit nicer. So let's pop over here. Interesting, this is notification. I'm just going to get that out of the way. Get ready for notifications. I don't want to see you right now. And maybe I'll just move me up there because there's nothing going to be up there. Perfect. So now this is kind of functioning in the sense that we have those buttons happening, but we have no validation yet for any of this stuff, and we should. So first things first is I'm going to actually go ahead and grab, and I'm a big fan of using services. Services are really a nice way of storing external logic that can be used in the front end or the back end, because you can do both in Next, and we'll show you that as we go forward, probably in the next video when it comes to creating actual users and signing people up and signing people in. But for now, we'll just set it up so that we have one service, and it's pretty much just going to be for validating your email. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that. I don't want to work in it too much, and I'll show you what it looks like. Email service, here we go. So I'm going to go ahead and create a services directory. Services. And I'm going to paste this file in here. Perfect. So all this is just some basic regular expression. It exports some valid function that I pass an email to, and it tells me is that a valid email or not. Pretty basic. So in here we're going to import that. Email service from, and it's going to be services email. There we go. And that way what we want to do now is have the ability to record these variables. Now there's a couple ways of doing this in React. You can keep everything in state, which is what we'll choose to do, but if you didn't want to validate on the fly, and let's say you wanted to validate when someone clicked enter or submitted the form, then you could have, which I'm not using the form, just using the div. Then you could have the elements have names, and you wouldn't need to keep up with them and let the browser handle the state for each of those elements. But instead, we're going to be a little bit lazy, or maybe not lazy, but whoops, I moved something wrong. We're going to have a couple different states here, and maybe I should use, this is where I was thinking, I did this originally with like 3 states, one for each of the variables, but I'm wondering if I should use Reducer for all of this, even though the logic here is really basic. Let's try it. Let's just go with useReducer, because we have to handle errors and things like that, and that might get a bit more complicated with just use states. So let's go and create a reducer here. Function reducer, put out the best name, and we have state and for action and state. State and action. And we'll just return the state for now. Okay, so let's set up a state. So let's say const, and if this is going to be, I have a hard time naming these things. Let's say state, if that's okay to do or not, and then dispatch. Dispatch is how we're going to send our actions through to the reducer if you've never used useReducer before. A lot like the pattern you see in Redux. useReducer, and we'll pass in a reducer, and then our initial state. Now, for now, I don't really need it. We're not going to set the name of anybody, we're not going to set the email by default, so we're just going to leave it empty, and that should be fine. So let me just make sure I didn't break anything, and this still loads perfectly fine. Yes, okay, good. So we have a state here, we have dispatch, and now what I want the state to look like, and I'll show you just with, with them comments here, is I have the state, I want to have a name, which is going to be some sort of string. I want to have the password, which is similarly going to be a string, and then I want to have the email, which is going to be a string. I also want to have here an errors object, and inside of that errors object, I'm going to have a name or a property for each one of those ones as well. So name, password, and email. And that will allow me to just have, I have an error about each one of these things, and that way we can put those in the specified label that we need to put them in. So let's create a few of these handlers. So let's say name is the first one. We have an onChange method inside of that input, and we're just going to take out, whoops, instead of creating functions for this, again, I'm being lazy, target, destructure that, and we're just going to say dispatch. And we'll have names like update and then whatever the text is. So we'll have here and type is going to be update dash, and this is going to be, what is it? What's the name here? Name. I should probably put a name on this element. There. Update name. I spelled update wrong. Update name, and we're going to pass in the value. So the value is going to be target.value. Perfect. And we'll do this for each one of them. So we'll dispatch that one here. We'll add the name of email, creative, and this is going to be update email. And similarly for password, except we also want to put the name in here, which is going to be, you guessed it, password. Update password. Perfect. And now in our reducer, we'll have a switch statement. I'm not sure if this is the typical pattern. I know this used to be the pattern when we did Redux, or when I did Redux ages ago. Like, I haven't used Redux in years, but I continued on. This is the only kind of the way I know of handling reducers. So we'll have a switch statement, and we'll do it on the action.type. And then we'll have a case for each one of them. So update name, whoopsie, update name here. And for that, we're just going to say state. My phone went off as some sort of alert. State.name.
Ontario. You are at high risk of spreading COVID-19.
Goodness me. State.name is equal to action.value. And what we can do in here, return, we can just do a break statement. So break out of this. Oh my goodness, my typing is just all over the place. Break. The default, of course, is going to be, because it'll complain otherwise we don't have a default, it's going to return the state. Boom. Otherwise, we're just going to return the state at the bottom. So once we break out of here, just return the state. If we have some sort of action we don't know how to handle, just return the state and do just a no op. So yeah, so what we can do here is we can set up the name, so we have the state always being the name. And then you can see down below here, we're going to add a value key, and that value is going to be state.name. Just so we're always updating or keeping the value, taking the value away from the browser, and we're holding it now in memory. Okay, perfect. The other thing we can do here is say, like, if we want to have invalid states for the name, we can just want to check the length. If action.value is less than, I don't know, 2, because people can have 2-letter names, but a 1-letter name seems a bit much. So if it's less than 2, we want to set state.errors equals to this, and what it's going to be here. State.errors, we can just check actually, because if we have already errors in the state, we want to keep them. State.errors, we'll do an if. State.errors equal, or, let's just check if it's undefined. If state.errors is undefined. So if we don't have any errors yet, or we've never declared errors, we're going to say state.errors is equal to an empty object with the key of name. Should probably do an assignment with the key of name being like too short, or we can just say not valid. Valid, not valid, not valid. Otherwise, we can just do state. Oops, should probably do else. So if we already have some sort of, we can do state.errors equals, or dot name equals not valid. We should probably actually just do this. Set it up so that if it's undefined, we add some sort of object, and then always do this at the end, like that. And then we say, we have to make sure we clear that. Are you serious? So many things going on. My phone's just bleeping off like crazy. It's these like countrywide or province-wide alerts that I'm getting. It's annoying. Interrupt my videos. Right, so we want to clear it, so we can do state.errors.name equals empty. And what we can do here is say, if we don't have errors, I don't really care, so we can just set up this, I don't remember what the name of this operator is, but it's just, if I don't have, first I should spell errors correctly, if I don't have any properties or errors is undefined and I try and access properties, usually it would throw some sort of error. But with this operator, I can say, if it exists, then try and get this property, which it won't, and that'll be fine. Good, okay. So this should be setting up so that we get errors properly. We're setting the value, state.errors, 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 and then we're going to return the state at the end, which will give us an updated state over here. And then in our label, we can set that error property to be state.errors.name. I remember, did I want error or errors? I have error, but I'm using errors everywhere else. So let's just update that. We'll just say we want errors. Okay, let's see how that works. I have an error. What's the issue? Left-hand side. Oh, darn it. State. I guess I can't do an assignment this way. Okay. If state.errors. We'll just do this. If state.errors, then state.errors.name equals empty. There we go. That works out. Now we can do assignment that way. Good, so let's just do a sign up so we can get that. Ooh, errors is undefined inside of state. So we can fix that with this operator. Also this operator. Perfect, sign up. What? Oh, darn. I guess because the first render, so let me just put an empty state in here. Because we don't want, that way state won't be empty. It'll always at least be an empty object, and that's fine. There we go, stop doing that. Everything's popping up, it's just craziness. Move this out of the way. So we have a name here, and we start typing in it, 1, 2, 3. It's not validating. Why isn't it validating? What's happening here? Input, onChange, target, dispatch, type, update name. Update names, it's the same thing, and then value is target.value. State.name. You know what I did? I didn't mutate the state properly. Ooh. So instead of doing a break here, we're actually going to return. And I'm going to return a spread of the state and then a replacement of name. Going to be, what is the name going to be? It's going to be action.value. And then similarly for the errors, we want to replace the errors with whatever version of the errors we have currently, so we don't remove any ones that we had already in there. State errors and the new error we want or nothing. So that we can say if, let's just remove all this junk. Oh, we did useless work. Let's have an is error flag. And if the action.value is less than 2, strictly less than 2, we'll have an error. So we can just do name over here, always resetting it to is error. And I forgot this, boom, good. So spread in the states, keep whatever's there, update the name, so we don't need to do this anymore. And this will be a new object, so it'll be fine to trigger a re-render. And now it should be okay. Stop popping up. Boop, boop, boop. No, it's, what is happening? Why? Oh. Is. You know why? Because I put is error and it should have text in there. Right, so let's just do error here. If it's that, then have this flag of not valid. Let's say less than 3. Less than 2, I guess that's fine. Oh, less than 3. Not less than 2. I don't know what. These can't be empty pretty much. Not valid, otherwise undefined. Defined, undefined. There we go, and then we'll pass in error here. There we go. This should work now. This should work finally. It is updating, we're just doing the wrong things. 1 character, 2 characters. It is not valid. Interesting, it's black because I don't have the right color, but I'm not going to worry about the colors right now, it's just some CSS that's missing. So that'd be fine. Why didn't it do it on the first, like if I have 1 character, oh, I put strictly less than, right, so 1 is actually valid. I don't want to do that. Strictly less. If it's strictly less than 2, oh yeah. Check the length, please. We also want to make sure that if we get some sort of undefined, that length be okay. That's when I was going wrong. Goodness, so 1 character, there we go, not valid, 2 characters, perfectly fine. Just in case I have a name with 2 characters. And empty is also invalid, which is good. Perfect, so we'll do the same thing for email and password. Now that we've figured out a logic and how that works, we can just kind of duplicate this. Not the whole thing. So update password. Here, value, this is all fine, not valid. I want to actually change this to too short. I'm not going to have a ton of requirements for your password, but being too short is one of them. I'm just going to say I want 6 characters. What do I have currently? Let me just check. What do I have currently? Pages, login. I have it, so it is 5. Yeah, 6 is probably fine. So anything above 5 characters, it's not too short, otherwise it is too short. And this we're going to change over here to password. Spelled that correctly. And the last one will be email. Email is a bit more fun. Of course, we're going to set it up here and here. But instead of checking the length, what we can actually check is the actual value. And we can say over here, not valid. And we're not going to check that. We can just use our email service that we have, email service.valid, and pass the email. If it's not valid, I wonder if I have to, if it's not valid, we want to say not valid. Otherwise, it is valid. We can say it's empty and clear the state. Perfect. Okay. Interesting. People are complaining about things. Error, 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 error. Too short, undefined, question mark dot length. Error has already been declared. Oh, my const, it looks like it gets hoisted outside. Because if I do it here, it says it's already been declared. So let's just do a nice let error, considering we can only have 1 at a time throughout this whole thing, and then get rid of these consts each time. This is the first I've learned about that, that consts get hoisted out of switch cases. It's new for me. Good, so I remove this here, and I type this. It's not validating. That should be validating, so they're invalid. Oh, you know why? Silly me. I didn't actually put the on change in there, so I gotta do that. So, boom, email. What? It should be. Update email. Hold on. Email. Oh, but I didn't put the errors in. That's why. Error is state dot error question mark. If you have errors dot email. There we are. And the last one is update password, and of course we're going to set the value here to the state.password, and then the errors as well. Error equals state.errors question mark dot password. Good. Okay, now it should be fine. Here we go. Let's do this. Perfect, so email is not valid until I do a valid email of gmail.com. Perfect. And obviously empty is also not valid. We could do something simple as like a.a.com. That's valid. Similarly with password, get out of the way. Password, we need to have it at least 5 characters. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Perfect. Good. The other thing we want to do, of course, those are all not valid. This one's not valid either, is say that if any of these are undefined, or at least one of them is not valid, so errors has at least one thing, then we shouldn't allow people to click the sign up button. So let's do that. Let's have some sort of state for this. Boom. Just gotta clean this up. So at the very bottom here we have that button. Where's that button at? Here it is. Sign up or log in. Ooh, that's not the right one. This is the right one here. The actual button that has nothing on it. So we want to have some sort of, whoops, disabled state, disabled. It's disabled when, and we're going to do a bit of nasty logic here because we could do a couple of things. Because I use an object here for errors, so it can be like errors.name, errors.password, I can't just say, is it full or empty? So I can check that. If we have anything in there, then it's going to be an error. Errors are present, so we can empty it out. Or I can check one individually. Is password in there, is email is in there, or name in there? The other thing we can do is have to make sure that they're not empty. So it's say is password empty, is whatever empty. So I'm actually going to create on render. We have this like is error or has error is better, just so we can do some computation about this not in line, because it's going to be a bit gross. So over here we'll have const has error, and we'll start off by just checking the values of each of those keys. We have to make sure we all have values in there. We have to all have values for the correct one. So if we are interesting, we should have some sort of function like has error. Has error should be a function, and it's going to take a state. So it takes in the state, and it's going to output some stuff, because it has to say if state, or if, it doesn't take the state, it doesn't care about the state. Let's just do this. Is sign up, if is sign up. Because here we have to care about the name, right? We have to check the name, whereas if we're not in sign up mode, we only have to check email and password. Whereas this one is name, email, password. Good, so then we can return from here if state.name, if not state.name, and or not, which we should just say. The simpler way of doing this, making sure this, so have a name and have an email, state.email, oh my goodness, and state.password. So if we have all of these, we're good. But we want to check errors, so we don't have all of these, it's an error. Or we have to check the length, so we can do object.values. Or we'll do keys. That's easier. We'll just count the number of keys that exist. Yeah, keys that exist. I can't type right now. Oh my gosh. Inside of our state.errors key. We want to make sure that if we don't have any errors, we're passing in, we can just do this double question mark here, whoops, null coalescing, just in case, just so we don't get an issue with that, and we'll check the length is greater than 0. So if we have anything greater than 0, that's also an error. This we can copy and paste pretty well to the next one. Oops, we'll just copy the whole thing here, except we don't need to check the name anymore. There. Now has error is a function, and it should get reevaluated every render. So let's just take this, has error, where are we? It's a function, and just evaluate it every render. Okay, let's see how we're going here. So it's disabled. Oh, it's not disabled because they're full. Take those out. Now it's disabled because there's an error, there's nothing in there. So it's not full. See, it's not valid, but there's still, this is in here. Why is that the case? So I have an error, so it shouldn't allow me to be in here. What's wrong with my logic? So this is true. I have this and this, so this is false. So false, or the length is greater than 0, which should be true, which should give me true. Has error should be true, but it's not. It's saying false. Interesting. Let's do some console.printing. Console.log. What's happening here? Boom, boom. Take a look at this. Object of email of undefined, email password undefined. Right, because there's no actual errors, so let me just give it an error. There we go. And take a look here. So not valid, not valid, not valid, password is undefined, which means the length of this, we get the keys. And interesting, so these are undefined here. That's not good, because if I count the number of keys, it's going to be 2, but I don't want that. So I guess what we're going to have to do is get the values and grossly filter out all the bad ones based on if they're a Boolean or not, and then get the length, and I spelled length wrong, which is probably the issue. Let's get this, so all the values, we'll paste it over here as well. Okay, here we go. So, boop. Still a valid email address, not a valid email address, perfect. So it's full, but it's not valid, so I can click the button, it's disabled. Similarly, if we just put this back in, so we have some sort of valid email, I can click the button. As soon as password is invalid, too short, can't log in. Wonderful. Similarly for here, let's just say this is, so I still can't sign up because name is empty. There we go, now I can sign up. As soon as it's not valid, I can't sign up. Wonderful. So that works perfectly well. Ooh, look at this, I changed and they didn't reevaluate the error correctly. So these are both valid, but now I'm stuck here. Ooh, that's not valid. Interesting. So when I switched it, I should probably set it to dispatch and remove name from here, because this is being evaluated, or I can just check each one individually. Let me think. What I'm saying is we could just check it like this. Is email in state.errors, or password word in state.errors. And this is a bit more verbose, a bit more declarative to say, are these in the error state? Because we can't pass them on if they are. This way it's just a bit more like I just want to look through them all. You know what, let's do this. It's simpler, I don't have to worry about messing around with use effect and things like this after that, so we'll just say this. Or these two are in state. That way it would be invalid. And similarly over here, we're going to do the same thing, except we're going to add in as well, or name in state.errors. Perfect. Let's check it out. Boom, boom. Oh, it's undefined. I must have did the logic wrong. So if email is in errors, or password is in errors, or name is in errors, we say true for one of those, a single true for all these ors is true, it has error. This is going to be false. Email, because of the value, it's got to be the value. Darn it. Darn. I wonder if we can, just, instead of setting them here, we can delete it. Email is undefined. We can, oh, gross. That's gross. It's going to change our reducers a bit. Fine, we'll just check to see each one not equal undefined. Because undefined, I set explicitly undefined in all of them, so we can check that. So errors.name not equal undefined. Or in this case, we want to see, is it undefined? Because then that has an error. So let's get rid of this. Let's duplicate that a couple times, not do this or, and change this to password. And change this one to name, password, and email. And duplicate this down here for password and email. Okay, that should be better. No, what? Okay, so first of all, you just stop. Why does it still have an error in here? If it equals undefined, then it's true that there's an error. Similarly here, and if these are empty, it's true. What's happening? Why is it giving an error? Okay, time to print some stuff out. Here we go. Console.log, print that whole statement. And let's take a look. So it's true, it has error for some reason. Let's print all the values we have in here, because I can't figure out some Boolean logic. Hooray. Print this, whoops, and print that. Cannot read password when undefined. Interesting. Just do this, goes to undefined. So there's some stuff, so it shows we have it. Undefined, undefined. So email and password are there. Password, errors and password are undefined. So this should be, it's not undefined. Yeah, if they're not undefined, my mistake. I had it originally. If they're not undefined, it's a bunch of negatives. If they're not undefined, then we don't have an error. But this is checking if it has errors. If it has errors, if it's not undefined. Silly me. There we go. Logging in. Otherwise, this. Perfect. Okay, and if we sign up, we create some sort of error in here. So name is not valid, but then I go to login, and I make that. There we go. Perfect. So it's ignoring it now. Wonderful. Okay. That's pretty well it. Without getting into creating anything, I think that's all we have. So this form is now set up to submit. Got the styling in there. We dealt with a bit of React state, which is good. Let's go ahead and set up for next time where we do the actual submitting. So we're going to use MongoDB and MongoDB models, and for that I like to use Mongoose, because Mongoose allows you to define nice models. Let's go in here and clear this out, and yarn adds Mongoose. The reason I also like to do MongoDB is that we can have a free instance through MongoDB Atlas, and when we go to launch this, I'll show you how to configure it. But it's nice that you can have, I think it's only 512 megabytes, something like that, but when you store the small amount of text that we're going to store in MongoDB, it'll last you for quite a while. Perfect, so we installed that. I'm going to move this out of the way. And I'm going to create a new directory in here to keep everything called, oops, actually I'll do that, that's fine, called models, and I'll create a new model called user, because we'll be creating those users. So user.js, and I'm going to import Mongoose from Mongoose. Now, if you're not familiar with Mongoose, it's an amazing package. I believe, and don't quote me on this one, I believe Guillermo Ranch, he set this up and ran this library before he started Zeit. But so another kind of Zeit technology, but it was acquired by Automatic, which runs, or owns or runs, supports, I'm not sure how to phrase that, WordPress. So it's a great technology we can use. And what we're going to do is we're going to export the default here, which is going to be our user. I'm going to do this actually like this. Const user equals. Now we have to check something first. Because we're running in dev mode, it may recreate or try and recreate all these files when the server hot reloads. So one way to avoid that is to check to make sure if this model is already defined, then don't bother defining it and use the one you have. Otherwise, we'll define it. So let me just quickly look and see how to do that. Typically copy and paste this one like that. Perfect, okay. So we'll go here, mongoose.models.user. So this user exists already in the models. If it does, we're going to take it. Otherwise, we're going to create one. Mongoose, perfect. .model, and we're going to name it user, and we're going to give it the schema. The schema is pretty much defining for our MongoDB, in our MongoDB record, or a document they call it, what properties do I want to have in and what types are they, and then Mongo performs some nice type checking and things like that on it, which is really good. So we're going to add in things like we want the name, which is going to be a string. We want, won't handle authentication yet, but we're going to have some sort of password way of storing and checking passwords. We want the email, which will be a string. We also want some sort of time to show when they're created at, just for records and easier searching, that sort of thing, which is going to be a date. And I believe right now, yeah, that'll be it. That'll be it for now. We're going to add some more when we actually go to do authentication, but this will be it for now. And then export default, we're going to export that user object. That way we can pull them in. Perfect. So I think that sets it up relatively nicely. We have a working form, obviously no submitting yet, but it's working so we can get going on doing actual authentication, either logging people in who already exist or signing up. And I think next time we're going to cover that, which is going to have us be able to dive into API routes in NextJS, which are going to be a lot of fun, doing some authentication, JWT tokens, that sort of thing, and submitting forms, making requests, which is going to be fun. So briefly, going through what we just did, we took a look at components, how to build the components a bit better in React, especially in NextJS, perfectly fine, just like a normal React project. I guess one thing I didn't cover was that, of course, I use this dot button over here to style, but this then becomes localized because of style.jsx, and so this becomes a hash and only kind of encapsulated into that file. So we don't have to worry about it leaking out into other files. If we do want to target it, which I haven't done yet, I can check. But anyway, we modified our login page so that it has some state in there as well as a bunch of logic. And let me just check briefly. No, I don't. Okay. Oh yeah, here we go. So look, dot field I use and dot button I use, and I have to use that :global flag in order to style those fields because those classes aren't exposed globally. I could force them to be compiled that way with the :global, and that allows the style sheets between components to talk to each other. But otherwise, I couldn't just target dot button because it's encapsulated into this component, which is quite nice. So we did that, a bit of styling, handled that login page, and prepared ourselves for next time, which is creating users, which might be a long one, creating users and logging in users. Perfect. Thanks so much for watching. Give this video a like, and thumbs up, if you liked it, so I know if I'm doing a good job and I can create more. And subscribe to learn about the newest videos I create, either my vlog, which I'm doing almost every day now, every 2 days. I'm doing a video at least every day. Either it's this one or my vlog. And subscribe so you know when I release the next episode of From Idea to Launch. Thanks so much. Talk to you later.